KP here. Welcome to Kevin Pratt's Volleyball Podcast. A current PE teacher, Bishop's boys varsity head coach, volleyball recruiting coordinator, and writer for vballrecruiter.com and Volleyball Magazine. On the podcast, KP will be interviewing coaches, directors, and athletes to discuss various volleyball topics. Enjoy the show. KP, take it away.
KP here, and I have a treat for you fans today. We have head coach Steve England of Hobart College. Coach, why don't you introduce yourself to the fans and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Coach Steve England. I'm at Hobart College. I've been here this month a year now. Previous to that, I was at St. John Fisher University, and where I spent the last 6 years of my life as a coach at the Division III level. And before that, I was the head coach at Elmira College for 4. And before that, I was at the University of Washington working with that crew as a grad assistant and where I got my master's.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Coach. Seems like you've been a little bit of a journeyman, and we can get into that a little bit. But let's take it really far back. What got you into volleyball, whether it was being an athlete or what got you into kind of in the coaching ranks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up with a single-parent household. My mom was a PE teacher. And so, to keep me out of trouble, she got me into every sport from hockey to baseball, lacrosse, and volleyball. But it really started with my Little League team. The ride share was already set up, and my baseball guys during the summer, my friends, played volleyball for Rochester Pace Bootlegger. So in the summer, played a lot of baseball, and then that ride share growing up with my best friends from baseball, we all started playing volleyball because a couple of their older brothers had played, and then kind of stuck from there. Playing in high school and club, and I played lacrosse a little bit for my first 2 years in college, but then it came back into my life when I was an undergrad at Nazareth College.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And one thing that fires me up is your mom was a PE teacher, because as you know, I am. But another thing that I think that is important for the viewers to know, as you know, I get a bunch of calls from kids like, hey, what's the right fit? What school should I go to? Is Division III, Division II, Division I my route? I think a lot of it is also building personal relationships. And one thing I admire about you, because I've been talking to you for a while about recruiting and stuff, is you really do a good job connecting with your students. And I think it's really cool that you mentioned that you come from a single-parent household, which is awesome. And there's a lot of recruits out there that do that. And I know that you and I have had great length conversations about that, and I think it's a great way for you to connect with the kids. And is that something you do talk to recruits about if it gets brought up or anything?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most defining pieces of my life, right? Losing a father at the age of 5, and it regardless of where it takes, where I was lucky to have a mom so involved in my life and caring about me as much as she did. She never missed a game growing up, and she, if she couldn't make it to a game, she was at my sister's game, and so she just wanted to be involved and understood that athletics was a big part of her life growing up, and it really has shaped me. And not having a male role model, some of the most important people in my life, relationship-wise, have been the coaches, and I think that they've played a big influence in my life and the career path that I ended up taking. And I think being authentic is really important, especially when you're recruiting or if you're just developing relationships with people. And that defining moment of not having a father growing up kind of lowers everybody's walls, and I've talked to them about something that's personal, and I'm not afraid of sharing something that wasn't the best thing that happened in my life, but showing through some grit, and now I'm a head coach at the college level. I should be proud of that, and my mom should be proud of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, moms are rock stars and superstars. She clearly did a good job with you, but I also think as a parent, I'm not a parent, but if I was a parent, I'd really appreciate it when coaches would get vulnerable with my son.
Yeah.
I think that that's a piece that is super valuable that we sometimes can't measure.
Yeah.
We always are measuring wins and losses and how shiny that degree is and all that good stuff. But I think at the end of the day, you're dealing with kids for 4 to 5 years and you're really connecting with them. And I've been doing this for a while and watching coaches. You're one of the best at it, so you're doing some good work. So I wanted to pivot to you've got a lot of coaching mentors in your life. You know, you mentioned that. Can you talk about some specific coaching mentors that have really helped shape your program and what's going to go forward with Hobart because that's shaped you?
Yeah, well, I was really lucky to have individuals in my life that really cared about me as a person and knew my background growing up. Like Cal Wickens was I've known him. I just turned 40 in January. I've known him for 30 years, and I played for him at Nazareth College. He's the director at Rochester Pace Bootlegger, and he's somebody that will be in the Volleyball Hall of Fame for everything he's done to grow the game of boys volleyball in this country, especially on the East Coast. Coach Fusar, Mike Fusar was my high school coach, who I still talk to, on a regular basis and show up to his preseason camps in the summertime and attend some of his camps and having those positive relationships. And then, Jim was a huge influence on the way that I coach at college and really changed the way that I saw and played and taught the game. Realizing, you think at your mid-20s, because you've played for such a long time that about the game, and then having to work with Jim in the University of Washington and even getting to introduce to Keegan Cook, who's at Minnesota now, who was at Washington before, really changed the way that I thought and how we teach, and just being flexible with the game, because we all see it and teach it differently, but there's a lot of smarter people than me out there that spend a lot of time and getting to sit down with Carl McGowan, who in my opinion is the John Wooden of our sport. Lucky to have some time and pick his brain, and I'm just lucky to be around some really good, smart people that have really shaped how I am doing the job today.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I know that you and I have had some long conversations about your mentors. I think they're all characters, and I mean that with all respect. Yeah. I think they are ambassadors for our sport. And one thing I like about you coaches, you always say, hey, let me connect you with this guy, Kevin. I'm writing like an article about New York, or you introduced me actually to Coach Wickens, in Vegas last summer. And then now his son's going to be at Stanford coaching.
Right.
I've never met Jim, but we've had a lot of conversations about Jim. Obviously, I know his father at UC Santa Barbara, so small world. And so a little bit more of a pivot too. I think the big question is Hobart's so unique right now because you guys are going to build your first team.
Right.
You were having a ton of success at St. John Fisher's, and you were a top 5 program. You were kind of finding your niche on the East Coast. What was the decision? What was the deciding factor to give Hobart a try?
Yeah. So it was within 45 minutes of where I'm currently living with my wife. We bought a house when I first started at Fisher. I built that program from scratch, just like we're doing here at Hobart. And honestly, when you build something from scratch, it's your baby, and your DNA is written all over it. But the opportunity for growth in my career, they offered me an assistant athletic director position. The resources that we have here in terms of the way that they take care of their student athletes was a little bit different. The higher academic prestige of Hobart compared to St. John Fisher. They're both great institutions, but Fisher was more of a regional. The majority makeup of my roster at Fisher was New York kids, so from Buffalo to Long Island, that I-90 corridor was really my bread and butter from a recruiting class standpoint. At Fisher, or at Hobart, there's only one New York State resident that's on my roster for next year. We have a libero from the country of Chile. We have a Ukrainian who was on campus that's going to play with us. Student athletes from California, Chicago, Florida, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So it really expanded my talent pool that I could choose from, because we have that high academic prestige that some student athletes, especially boys volleyball players, are looking for. And there's only a few high academic schools that really offer men's volleyball in this country, and I'm lucky to be part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Coach, I'm sure you're aware, but I constantly get phone calls from kids. It's a highly academic sport, which is awesome.
Right.
And there's kids literally from 3.9 to 4.56.
Right.
And I don't think this will surprise you. They all go, okay, Harvard, Princeton, MIT.
Yep.
That's where I go. It's like, well, it's about 4 to 5 roster spots max each year.
Yeah.
And you and I both know how those programs work, and they're very transparent. They tell the whole world they're very respected programs and coaches, but they can assist about 1 or 2 kids a year.
Right.
And they have to be very academic, and it's all got to play out. And a lot of it is like you got to get in on your own merit.
Absolutely.
There are some Division IIIs that are highly academic, and I would say you're one of them. One thing that just caught my eye immediately when I was talking about it, I think it'd be cool if you could mention it and go into depth, is you're obviously in New York, and a lot of student athletes like business. Like, that's a popular major.
For sure.
What's so unique about your school is you told me that student athletes can work on Wall Street and they actually can have an opportunity to get paid. Can you kind of go in depth about that?
Yeah, so we're really lucky to have some, wealthy donors that have endowed our career services called the Pathways program. And we guarantee 100% paid internship for 1 year, either your junior or senior year while you're at Hobart. And that's an endowed program, and you have to do some prerequisites as a freshman and sophomore to get qualified for that, but it's like writing a resume and going in for some interview tutoring sessions, really preparing our students to become professionals right off the bat here as a freshman. So that opportunity and this travel abroad, if you don't want to work in New York or in Boston and you have that international taste in your mouth and you want to see what that's like, we have some opportunities in London and in Australia. Our study abroad programs are kind of associated with that as well. And I think we're about 20% more than the national average on students that can study abroad and be a part of these programs. And we kind of market ourselves as like a mini Ivy League. Yes, you can, if you get into Harvard and MIT and Stanford, you probably are going to go to those schools. We understand that those aren't backup schools for anybody, but we are a great option if you don't. If you can't get a roster spot or you can't get into Princeton, we are a great opportunity because we're still going to provide you with opportunities to network with individuals that are still in high prestigious jobs in the government or great companies across the country and the world.
Yeah, and I think you would agree with this. I think all Division I coaches would too. Is there's 25% of recruits that are blue chip. They're going to go to the top 5: Hawaii, UCLA, SC, Stanford.
Right.
Like, they're academic kids. Yeah, they're going to go, and they're going to go, and they're going to compete. And we all know what type of kids those are. Then there's about 25% that are maybe local to those schools, or that's just their dream, and they're like, okay, I understand if I go, I'm going to redshirt, fulfill my major, I might get to start a year or 2. Then there's a whole another 25% where it's like, you are battling for a roster spot every year. And the D1 coaches don't hide about this, but it's like you're taking stats during practice.
Absolutely.
You're not traveling when they go. They only take like 15. And again, I'm not knocking D1. Like, I was a Division I athlete, and I did this. Like, my first year, I didn't travel. And I knew what I was signing up for, and Pacific was a California school, and I was all about it. But I think Hobart and Division III schools present something so magical to kids.
Yeah.
Like, look, like, you're one of those maybe bottom 25%ers on a Division I team. You can compete like crazy at the Division III. It's still phenomenal volleyball.
Yeah.
And then each school, as you know, has its perks. Like, I can't believe how much financial aid your institution has given some athletes that I've heard about. I know
Yeah.
other T3s do that too.
Yeah.
And I think that internship that you just talked about is second to none. So I think that my advice is when kids and parents are going through this, they really got to look at this. Like, this is not Duke basketball.
Yeah.
It's not going to play football for Deion Sanders at CV. Like, volleyball's not like that. I understand, like, why it draws a crowd and you can get in and out, NIL deal. I get that. But I think volleyball, you got to look at it with a different lens. And we don't have professional volleyball. Like, you can go play in Europe, but it's like getting that degree, not having a lot of debt after you're getting your degree, and setting yourself up for success after volleyball is so important. I think your school could potentially provide that.
Yeah, and we're lucky to have a large endowment. I think it's around $300 million. It's not $26.7 billion like MIT has, right, or Stanford. But it's large enough where we can provide opportunities for we meet need for families, and that's pretty unique where other institutions I've been in the past just aren't in a position to do that from a financial standpoint. But you also have to be able to get in too, right? Yeah. So you got to earn it in the classroom and taking those standardized tests, which are super important, that every school is going to take a look at. And the better you do in the classroom and on those tests and those extracurricular activities that you're doing outside of volleyball or sports, being a leader in the community too is important to us. And we want that well-rounded individual that has lots of different interests, but really looking for a high academic experience that is going to raise your socioeconomic status. That's really what I'm most fired up about, is that we're providing an opportunity for really smart, talented young men to elevate their socioeconomic status and really put them in a different position and to be successful later in life, which is, we're changing people's lives. The volleyball is awesome. I want to compete for a national championship. Don't get me wrong, Kevin, like that's why I'm here, is with the resources that they're giving me. But I'm more excited about the relationships that I'm going to have with the individuals that are going to play for me and see them become who they want to become.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I really admire about our relationship, Steve, is I've known you now for about 7 years. And anytime, any day, I can text you. For Christmas, like I say, like Merry Christmas. Like, if I text you and show you some film, you're like, thank you. You look into it, and you give every student athlete an opportunity. And you just look, and you lift that rock. You look underneath, and obviously recruiting has been going really well for you, I would think. Can you kind of touch up on maybe some of the recruits you've gotten and kind of your recruiting story this year? Because you guys didn't have a season, you got hired, and like they gave you a full year to recruit. So how has that journey been for you?
It's exciting because it's the second time I get to do it, and I can learn from the mistakes that I did the first time around. And it's a different beast too. So there's a learning curve of learning the school and how to recruit. What does a statesman look like? But it's gone really well. I can tell you there's some parts of the year where I was freaking out and like, I don't know if we're going to get a team together, but we ended up pulling and being patient. And so, it's unique where we have one of our setters was waiting on his decision from MIT, and that takes a little bit longer, or waiting on their decision on Princeton or have a chance at Harvard. So you have to be a little bit more patient when you're dealing with these high academic student athletes. Have lots of options, and trying to convince them of a vision of not having overnights. Last year was tough. There's no team on campus, so the guys that are coming to really believe in the vision that what we're trying to do, and the staff that met with our recruits when they were on campus. I can't be thankful enough for Chris Gray and his staff and Brian Miller, who's our AD. They've just given me a lot of resources and the freedom to kind of go to work. And we were lucky enough to sign Andrew Kim, who's the Division III Player of the Year from last year. He's got 2 years of COVID eligibility, and there's for a player like that to believe in what we're trying to do as an institution, it's nice to have a first-year program with the player of the year, the best player in the country on your team. So we're really lucky to have him, and then it just kind of fired up everybody else. And the 24s are even more talented than the 23. So it just takes one step at a time when you're building the program, and I'm really excited to get back in the gym and coach.
Well, as you know too, I was in New York last summer, roaming around a bunch of colleges, making my connections and stuff, and all of them said, "Look out when Steve gets that program." And yeah, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I think you're going to be in the mix. I think you got a lot going for you.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting to watch. Another question I have, because I think you would be the guy to answer, because you've been around Division III volleyball for a while.
Yeah.
When I was getting recruited, it wasn't as much nationally. It was kind of more local. Like, YouTube wasn't even out. We had VHSs that we were making coaches. Like, yes, we were emailing, but there was one Junior Olympics. There wasn't all these, like, open qualifiers.
Right.
You would play, like, in little high schools. And if you were a top 8 Southern California, you'd be in that high school. But if you weren't, which most of us weren't, we were in some other high school. So it's really hard to get recruited.
Yeah.
And then to be honest, I mean, again, I'm 37, so this was a while ago, but Division IIIs weren't really a thought for Southern California guys.
Right.
They have to get, information from Springfield, because Charlie's obviously recruiting, and Carthage, but how are you recruiting? Are you recruiting, like you said, nationally?
Yeah.
And then also another question I have is, how has the game changed in the last 10, 20 years for Division III?
Well, getting people's contact information from a recruiting standpoint has never been easier, especially with the university athlete and logging on to all the student athletes or the recruits' schedules for a national or a bid tournament. It's become a lot easier to contact students. Back when you and I were playing in high school, there wasn't a lot of opportunities. I think there was a period of time where NYU, Juniata, Springfield were in the EIVA and playing a D1 schedule at a D3 level. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but if one of those teams won the EIVA, which was hard to do, they could compete for a Division I and a Division III national championship in the same year. And really, there wasn't a Division III NCAA tournament till a few, maybe less than 10 years ago. So it was the Molten Final Four at Division III when I was playing at undergrad. So there's like this huge conference called the NECFA, and it was basically 65 Division III teams all competing for that one spot that was open in the Molten Final Four. And then, eventually, the growth of the game at Division III, we're at, I think, around 130 institutions right now that sponsor men's volleyball. We're going to have 18, teams competing for a national championship next year, which is pretty great. And it's, the year after that, we're looking at 20. We're averaging about adding 4 to 5 new Division III teams a year now. Whereas when I first started at Elmira, I was like one of 99 coaches at Division III coaching. And, as you know, the Division I's, there's not a lot of opportunities, around 23, 25 teams, give or take on any given year. So if you compare that to the women's game, there's 420 Division III women's volleyball programs in the country. That's 4 times the size of men's volleyball across all 3 divisions.
Awesome. Well, it's a fun segment I'm going to add to our future podcast, especially for coaches. But I put out a poll, and I asked athletes or parents to ask you questions. So I got about 6 of them. So there's to you, Coach Steve, and they're specific to Hobart. So
cool.
One of the questions was, when an athlete sends you film, what are you looking for? Are you looking for just a 5-minute highlight? Are you looking for a full match? What is the magic potion they got to send you when they're sending you film?
I think the initial right off the bat, right? Give me your best plays. If you're a libero, I want to see how well you pass against a float serve or a jump spin. If you're an outside or an attacker, what does your serve and pass look like? From an outside standpoint, I want to know if your arm can compete in the UVC. The UVC is the best conference in the country. So, are you a good enough athlete to compete in our conference first and foremost? So give me your best plays. It's just me, and I have a full-time assistant coach that's working with both the men's and the women's team. So, I'm not looking to watch a match. I don't have enough time to watch everybody's match. But if you spark my interest, I'll reach out, try to get a phone call, and then I'll come watch you play at a bid tournament, try to get you on campus. And then if you come on a visit for us, you can play in an open gym with my guys. So then my guys can tell me if they can hang or not. Right.
Yeah.
So that's, and then academically, I can love you from an athlete, but if my baseline is kind of like that 3.6, 13.10 SAT. So if you're below that, it's hey, I love you as a volleyball player, but it's probably not going to work out from an academic. But what I like to do is I want to grow the game. Here's some institutions that might be the right fit if you haven't heard about them. Let's look at that. So I'm not afraid to send good players that might not be able to get in my team to other institutions, and I think that's what's unique about men's volleyball, especially at Division III. We just want to see it grow. We want to get to 64 teams in that NCAA tournament someday, and if guys are just not playing at these schools, then we're not going to have the growth of it. So I want men's volleyball players or boys at the high school level to go find a place that's the right fit for them.
Absolutely. So this next question was a two-part question from a parent.
Okay.
And they asked, with the landscape of volleyball going on, should my son play on a ones or twos team? And then what is your thoughts on athletes, players, switching clubs so often? Is that a red flag to you?
So that's such an individual situation, right? Ones or twos. I think if you're good enough, you'll stand out, or you find a way to get recruited at the next level. I kind of stay away from recommending, because I might not know that club or that individual. But it's not a red flag switching clubs. Like, you got to do what's best for you and where you feel comfortable with. Maybe it might not be the right coach. It might be, I might be the right system, or hey, my best friends are playing. Like, if you're having fun and you feel like that you're growing and improving as an athlete, I say you go for that. But ones or twos doesn't matter to me. I know that very rarely have I gotten a number ones kid at Balboa Bay at Division III. Those guys are high level D1 guys. But if I could get a twos or a threes team from that club, I would be, ecstatic. And that's a unique situation. But if you're good enough, I'm not even looking at scores. Half the time, if there's just one of me at those tournaments, I want to see how you interact with your teammates. How are you dealing with some adversity when things aren't going your way? And we're really looking for those good culture kids that want to see the team improve, and not necessarily worry too much about the winning and losing. Because I'm going to sit there for maybe a set and see a couple of plays, and if I see what I like, I'll mark you down, and then I got to see other guys, because we only have a limited window in those tournaments. So I'm looking for some different things, depending on the position too.
I think you bring up some wonderful points. I get asked those things all the time. And then the thing that I advise athletes and parents, I said, scan your environment, see if you're in a good situation with your club. There can be a number of reasons, like driving too far, it's impacting your child's academics.
Right.
Be something like that. I do advise the athletes and parents are like, you ready to tell your story? Now, because some coaches, and I'm not saying that you're like this, but some are like, I've had conversations like, oh, it's a red flag, you need to a bunch of clubs. Some programs have that luxury that they can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're really picky about the recruits, but I
Right.
think it's imperative that you tell your story. Like, I switched clubs in this situation. My two best friends moved clubs. They moved out of the area.
Yeah.
I had private lessons with this coach and really connected. I
Right.
think that it's going to help me with my future college endeavors. And
Yeah.
I think it's fine, but I think if you kind of draw a blank when we ask you that,
Yeah.
and then, as you know, I don't think parents get this, is I love how our volleyball communities like this. I get questions all the time. Kids contact me, I want to transfer, and we're okay.
Yeah.
And obviously I keep it between them and myself, but I go, the first thing that's going to happen when you transfer is that coach is going to call your future coach vice versa. That's just how our world of volleyball works as coaches. So my advice when people are like, money clubs and do all that, like, do it the right way. And there's a way to do it. Like, if you go, like, I'm not going to play for your club anymore. This is why. And I think if you hear that, you're like, cool, that you did it right,
Right. And I was a student athlete that transferred schools and sports.
Yeah.
Right. It just didn't fit for me at my first institution, and I thought it was going to be something that it wasn't. It was great. I played every single game my first 2 years, but it just wasn't the right culture fit for me. So when I left and Cal called me to start the men's volleyball program at Nazareth College, I was like, hey, I still get to be a college athlete and start something from scratch. And I really, it was nice to have volleyball come back into my life after a couple of years off. But it's everybody's situation is special and unique. And I think doing the homework beforehand, right? Academically, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to study? Is always something that advice that I'm given. And then, do you want big school? Do you want small school? Do you want to play your first year, or do you want to, fight for a spot your first 2 years at a good team? So there's so many different situations, and everybody's unique, but there is an opportunity for everybody that wants to play at college. It's out there. It just takes some legwork.
I think it's so important to touch up on this, to piggyback on what you said a little while ago, is I think parents especially are caught up in the scores of the game.
Yeah.
Caught up what division their child's in.
Yeah.
Or if they're not, if you may, a blue blood program like a Balboa Bay, Beta Bay, Wade, whatever, they're not in that, then they start getting concerned. And I think what's fascinating is I hope that the viewers listen. You're looking at like their footwork. You're looking at how they slap hands after the ball. You're looking at how they're looking their coach in the eye. If you're looking at how well they jump, and I don't think you're overly concerned if opposite or middle isn't getting a great connection with their setter. If volleyball IQ so high, you put him with a good setter, that kid's gonna elevate his game more.
I'll tell you a story, Kevin. When I started the program at Fisher, we were looking just for athletic bodies, right? We got to put this team together, and I'm just going to take anybody that's interested in playing with us those first couple of years. When you're building something from scratch, you're not going to get 20 well-refined volleyball players, right? It just doesn't happen. So we took this young man who was a soccer player, was in the pharmacy program. It was like a 6-year pharmacy program. He was in his 4th or 5th year. His buddies played high school volleyball, and he was part of their intramural team at Fisher before I got there. We took him aboard. He had never been trained, but he was like the only man that we had at the time. I have these 17, 18-year-olds, and then I have this guy that's been lifting weights in college for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And we trained him in the middle. We taught him how to do the right footwork, and we taught him the concepts. He was a smart guy. And he was our M3 the first year, and then he was our starting M1 year 2. And we ended up playing Vassar in a UVC conference playoff match, and they couldn't stop him. So it's like, I want to see that you're athletic. I can teach you. I'm confident in my staff's ability and our strength and performance that we're going to get you volleyball ready. I just want to, are you coachable? Are you athletic enough to be in my gym? Can you hang with Andrew Kim? If you can hang with Andrew Kim, then you're ready to be a part of our program. So it's more of like, can I see myself coaching you for the next 4 years? And are you athletic enough to be in my gym?
Yeah, absolutely. Another question from an athlete that wrote me is, what is Hobart's short-term and long-term men's volleyball goals?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most favorite questions that I had that you sent me previous to this. So short term, when we're starting a new program, the culture has got to be there. Yes, we're going to have some talented volleyball players on our roster, but I truly am a firm believer if we don't get the culture right these first couple of years, then we're setting ourselves up for failure in the long term. Right, we have all of the resources in the world to be very good and compete with the best teams in the country. But the hardest part is not the volleyball. It's getting a group of guys from different countries, different parts of the world, different parts of the country together and row the boat in the same direction. And we're lucky enough to have a sports psychologist that our guys are already doing some team activities and some homework over the summer that really reflective leadership. What type of person am I? What type of leader they individually are over the summer. And then when we get together in the fall, we're going to work out what is our core values, what is our mission statement, what's our playing philosophy going to be. So really diving deep at the core being of a team and how does a team operate and how do we be a good teammate. I'm not asking you all to be best friends. Yes, that's going to happen. I'm going to be in the wedding of my buddy. I was in the wedding party of my best friend from college that was on my team, right? Or you're going to be godparents for your friends that you play teammates with, but that's not everybody. I think it's really even harder to be a good teammate. And so what does that look like? And how do we develop that? What are our routines and our habits when we go on the road? None of these guys other than Andrew have done this before, and Andrew still hasn't done it here. So there's going to be a little bit of a change. So I think those pieces, and then we'll worry about the volleyball, and the volleyball will be part of that. But mostly, can we be good people?
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. And I think you're in the right place, right time. You're in a good headspace. You have some experience. Hobart's really lucky to have you. I know the whole country's watching you and rooting you on. Even your competitors are respectful of you and rooting you on. But those were all the questions I had from the fans and stuff. But do you have anything else you'd love to add, Coach, before we
I'll answer the second part of that question, too. I got on my little rant here, Kevin. But long term, one of the biggest reasons why I chose to be here is in my interview, they asked me, what do I need to do to win a national championship? And that doesn't happen very often from an administrative group that brought me in. And they're providing me with all of the resources from strength and conditioning to volley station to sports psychologists. We have 25 national championships as an institution here, and they want to put trophies and they want to see trophies in that trophy case. And why do we do this? We want to compete at the highest level and win championships, and the relationships are just as important to me as putting those trophies there. But those are the long-term goals. I want to win the UVC and I want to compete for national championships. And, I don't have one. So I'm going to be fighting for it every single day. I think, and then going back to the last question that you had, Kevin, how did you get involved with volleyball and why are you looking out for the growth of the game? What's important to you?
I love it when people on the podcast ask me questions, so thanks. But before I answer that, I think it's just so important to mention, I think you're doing some great things for Hobart. I believe in you. I also think I was your athletic director of administration. I've been following this game pretty closely since I was basically 14 years old, so 23 years. Never heard of a first-year program get a National Player of the Year in the first year. not only, maybe they get it in the high school ranks, you got a national player of the year in Division III, and you did it the right way. I mean, the kid graduated.
Yep.
You and Rich are friends at Vassar. They
Yeah.
don't have grad school, but I'm just super excited, to keep watching you. And I was your admin team. I think, sweet, it's pretty awesome. I've just never heard of that, and when I heard that, I was like, oh my, they just got Andrew Kim. But to get to your question, just like anything, we've had long talks about volleyball. It shaped my life. I love the camaraderie. I love being around people. I love the relationships. I love going to events because of volleyball-related things. Whether it's fun events, playing beach or grass, or going to really serious events. And it took me a while to figure it out, but I absolutely love being a PE teacher. Like, I'm as into being a PE teacher in San Diego as I am to being a coach for volleyball. And no disrespect to college coaches, I think they're rock stars. I just don't want to travel that much. And I think a little bit as I live in downtown San Diego and the weather.
That's a tough place to live, Kevin.
So, and I still get to do it at the Bishop School. The Bishop School is amazing. It's a little private school in La Jolla. So, and I also kind of created a little avenue that I'm being a little bit of a trailblazer as a recruiting coordinator.
Yeah.
And still being involved in the game. You guys make me feel very, very valued as coaches.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys value my input, and it's been fun. And I don't see myself slowing down at all. I see myself every other day going, how can I go faster here with what I'm to do? So that's a great question.
Yeah, and then another one, if you have some time, where do you think the challenges are in your space of being, you work for a club for a little bit, you're a high school PE teacher and coach, you're working with some student athletes that are that want to play at the next level. Where are the challenges for you? And then what are you think some of those solutions could be, from our standpoint as college coaches?
I think a great question, really good question. I think at first, parents don't understand the importance of a recruiting coordinator. I'm not doing a self-plug. Like, I have a full-time PE teaching job. I got plenty of clients. I'm doing just fine. I think you have to scan your environment to see what clubs you're in. And if you have like a guru, like if you're in a Balboa Bay, there's like 7 coaches there that have you on speed dial and everything.
Right.
I get it. But there are some parts of the country where it's like, hey, we're a little bit behind this. Or maybe it's their first child that has done college recruiting.
Yeah.
Another thing that a former Division I coach, now Division II, told me is like Division III is the best hidden gem in men's volleyball.
Yeah.
And I think for me to relay that, don't get me wrong, I love when kids call me and say, I want to go to Penn State, UCLA. And I say, like, hey, I never want to curb their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And I think they should go for it. And I think they should dream big. I also think they should do themselves a favor and meet remarkable coaches like yourself and meet the Division III in the NAIA and figure out what's a financial fit, because I think kids get so caught up in a certain situation, then they graduate and go, oh my gosh, I'm $65,000 in debt. Like my career's over when I'm 24. So I'm learning a lot through it. I also think that I really do think, whether it's a recruiting coordinator, a coaching mentor, whatever, I do think it's more important than ever to get someone to help you.
Yeah.
There's so many teams now in Division III.
Right.
And I don't say this is a negative, but there's a lot of Division I coaches, and they have this luxury. They don't get back to that. And I don't fault them. They got a lot going on. They're competing at a high level. And I think sometimes a certain coach or recruiting coordinator can at least open the door for you and say, let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
Also, a recruiting coordinator, I think everyone sometimes might think, oh, he can get him to Stanford, he can get him to SC. No.
Yeah.
My role is I'm going to introduce you to a ton of coaches and open the door, but the recruit still has to drive the bus. And I know you would say that, and when we were on that recruiting panel, you always, and it wasn't a knock on me as a recruiting coordinator. It's like, look, drive the bus.
you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink, Kevin. And there's a certain part of this that's got to be a two-way street. Yeah, I can count on my board. There's probably 25 guys on my board that are coming on visits in the next September, October time period. And those are the guys that I've talked to that are coming on visits. And then there's probably another 25 guys who I have emails out to. And I got to take rigorous notes, but but a lot of the guys that I reach out to don't even send me an email back. So at some point during this process, I just have to move on. And the earlier you get on it, the easier that recruiting is going to be. And just, there's nothing wrong with filling out a questionnaire. Like, that's the easiest way. If you don't feel comfortable sending an email, go on to any one of these websites that have an online recruiting questionnaire, fill that out, put some video. Everybody has a YouTube channel or some film they have from high school or club, put that in there. And if that coach is interested in you, that might be the easiest way if you're if you're not sure to do that. But again, getting in front of somebody's, you can call me and you texted me the other day with some film, right? That's an easiest way into my orbit, right? And may or may not like that individual, or we might not be looking for this certain position this year. But I think that there's multiple ways of skinning the cat, or whatever that saying is. But the opportunity, if you're willing to put in the work and that's what you want to do, I think Division III is a great option for individuals, not only from a volleyball standpoint, but some high academic schools that are going to get you a great job when you're done with your 4 years, or get you into grad school, right?
That's what I admire about you too, is you're very honest with me. That shows that our relationship is, you'll go, hey, this is going to be great in our glamour.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't need this piece, but then you'll rattle off like 4 universities. Like, you might want to knock on these doors. And that's why I think you're just such a great ambassador for our sport. You're willing, you just want the sport to grow. You're not sitting there just all about Hobart, which is great. Quick question for you, because, we were talking about this, is, Steve, would you prefer an athlete just coach, this doesn't seem like the right fit, I'm going in this direction, just so you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Then we get more no's than we get yeses in our recruiting world, especially last year. I don't think there was a 23 volleyball player that played at an open bid tournament that I didn't reach out to, Kevin.
Yeah.
And I would say the return rate would probably be under 15%.
I just think also, and athletes that are here listening, and I'm not saying this is going to happen to you, Steve. I have no idea, but I know there's a ton of Division III coaches that end up becoming Division I assistants, like the Dominican guy. Guarantee you, Jonathan Winder's saying, "Who's your top recruits? Why?" Yeah. And he's handing them a piece of paper, like, "Here's my guys."
Yeah.
Well, I would just advise, if you're a sophomore or junior, you have nothing to lose to write back these flattered. Thank you. I would love for you to continue watching me. At this time, I'm not really making visits yet. And worst case, you're just going to watch them. Now, when you're a senior and you're applying to schools, say, "Hey, coach, I'm going to apply here. I'm not going to apply your school." But I just think it's so interesting when people shut the door so fast.
Yeah.
It's like it's a sophomore. And I think it's fascinating. It's a life skill, guys, that you got to learn.
Yeah.
Respond. Say thank you. It's perfectly fine. People tell me no all the time. I ask people to be on the podcast all the time. They say no thanks,
Just be honest. You're not going to hurt our feelings. It's not going to be a poor reflection on you. It's almost a negative if I don't hear anything back. Yeah. And at least we both know. We're both on the same page. You won't get another 2 or 3 emails from me. If the kid tells me that Hobart isn't the right choice, I respect that. But we're just trying to do our part of the job and build our team. And it means that we like your game. And if it's not the right fit, sometimes we don't know, Hobart's not your engineering school, right? Like we're not that specific major is probably not going to be the greatest for us. As for my program, right? So if a student comes back, hey, you don't have my major, I'm looking at engineering, I have no problem. Hey, here's some volleyball schools that have that program that I would suggest looking into if you haven't heard from them. And I'll do that. Just like you said, I'll do that to you all the time.
Yeah.
Because again, it's finding getting those kids, instead of going to Purdue and playing club, why don't you go to Stevens or Wentworth or NJIT and continue playing the game and getting coached at a high level?
Absolutely. As all you can see, and for you viewers that are watching or the viewers that are listening, Steve truly uses volleyball as a vehicle to teach life skills. And I think that sums it up real well for what you're doing. Wishing you the best of luck.
Yeah.
Coach, I can't thank you enough for being on, and I will definitely keep an eye out on some live stream events, and we'll see all that good stuff. So have a great one, and thanks so much.
Kevin, thank you. It was an honor.
Yeah, and I'm going to be mailing you a KP's Crew shirt.
Right.
Getting that in about, 2 or 3 weeks. So thanks so
All right.
much.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
All right.